Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Haley, and if you are new here, I work at an OBGYN clinic where I teach women and couples how to chart their cycles so they can either achieve or avoid pregnancy, but also so that they can manage and maintain their fertility. I've been working in this specific capacity for about a year now, but I've been teaching women and couples how to chart for over 6 years now in different capacities. And what's been kind of weighing on my heart a little bit has been more focused on couples learning this, learning how to chart their cycles, right? What does it look like for an actual couple to learn how to do this? Because I work with both. I work with couples and I work with just women alone who are married and the husband doesn't come to the meetings, or single women who are trying to figure out something with their reproductive health. So I see a wide range of people and couples of all ages. And it's really interesting the dynamic when there's a couple in my office versus just a woman. And so I really wanted to speak to the couples, or if you're a woman, listen, I assume that it's mostly women watching my videos, but if you're a man, you are absolutely welcome here. And this video is actually for you. So when I have couples come in, oftentimes they are either engaged and they're learning this natural family planning or fertility awareness method to use in their marriage once they get married. I also see married couples who are not wanting to use the birth control pill or condoms or just any other type of hormonal contraceptive either. They're looking for a more natural solution to planning out their families. And so there's a really cool dynamic when the couple is present, when there's a man and a woman present. And oftentimes I get a little bit of a glimpse into what their own dynamic, what their communication around their fertility looks like. And it's really beautiful. It's really challenging for sure, but there's a confidence that comes with the man being there, because it's not only his wife telling him what he's learning, or his fiance or his girlfriend, whoever, telling him what she's learning, but he's learning it firsthand too. So he feels more of that responsibility and more just involved, more aware of the beauty of his partner's design as a woman. The woman, I've also noticed, feels so much more supported and loved when her husband is able to be there. So to take a step back really quickly, I want to talk about what is even the importance of family planning as a couple, right? And if you are a single woman listening to this, totally fine. Maybe you have a friend who can be your accountability partner, or your mom, or someone. Natural family planning, charting your cycle, can be done on your own, but it is so much, there's a different dynamic when it's done together, especially when a married couple is doing it together. I just see this change and this switch flip off, or flip on, I should say, when I'm working with a couple. So to take a step back, like I said, to talk about why fertility is even important to see as a couple, right? Rather than just the man's fertility and the woman's fertility. What happens when you look at it is their fertility, one fertility between the two of them. So just anatomy, hormones, real quick. Men, a healthy male, I should say, is always fertile. So from the time he hits puberty until he's 6 feet under, he is pretty much always producing more and more sperm. There's not going to be a time, and again, I'm saying a healthy male, there's not going to be a time when he is infertile. He's always producing more and more sperm. That's the way that his body is made and created. Now, a woman, on the other hand, completely different, right? Our cycles as women are cyclical. There are going to be some times during our cycle when we are fertile, and there's going to be other times of our cycle when we're not. And so charting the cycle is really focused on the woman's fertility because of the fact that we're looking for when is she fertile and when is she infertile. Whereas for the man, it's different because he's always fertile. What is there to chart if you know he's always fertile, right? So when we're talking about charting, a lot of the responsibility does go on the woman. That is just a fact of nature, right? Our fertility as women is different. It's cyclical. It's on and off throughout the cycle, throughout a given month or however long that cycle is, right? And so when we chart our cycle, when we're looking for biomarkers that are telling us when we're fertile or infertile, that is all on the woman. There is a lot of responsibility on the woman when it comes to charting. She is looking at her cervical mucus every day when she goes to the bathroom. She may be taking her temperature every morning. She may be peeing on an LH stick. She's doing a lot of different things to manage her fertility. So why is it important that if you are in a couple relationship, if you are engaged or you are married, especially, that this is something that you do together? Well, something that I have that's not uncommon for me to hear, I should say, something that's not uncommon for me to hear is the women who do it on their own feel like it's a burden. They feel like it's a lot of work on their shoulders only, and they don't have much support. There's not always somebody there reminding them to check, every time you go to the bathroom, or to support them when they're waking up in the morning to take their temperature. These are little things, but they add up, and it can feel like a really lonely process and a burdensome process when you are doing it on your own. When I see the man step up and he is communicating with his wife about her fertility, about their fertility, right? He's communicating with her. He's asking her questions. He's coming to the meetings with me. That's just awesome when I see that. And the best thing that I see the most supportive husbands do is they take over the charting. And whenever I'm working with a couple, no matter what the reason that they're seeing me is, whenever I'm working with a couple, I always challenge that man to take over the charting. And what does that look like logistically, right? That looks like a literal 10 to 30-second conversation at the end of the day. Really no more than that, where the woman is saying, hey, honey, here's what I saw today. He writes it down, bam, done. That's all that it is. It's not like it's this huge, I think we can look at it as like this huge barrier and like that it's impossible to do this as a couple, when in reality, that's just where it starts. Like that is all, really all that needs to be done in order to make this a sign of their fertility as a couple. Because even though the woman's fertility is the fertility that we have more emphasis on, when the husband is aware on any given day of where his wife is at in her fertility, there is a burden that is lifted off of the woman and off of the man when there is that constant communication. And again, this could literally be a 10-second conversation, or it could turn into a longer conversation because every single cycle that couple is discerning, is this a good time to is this a prudent time to bring another child into our family, into the world, right? This is a discernment between the couple, right? It's not, when it's something that's just put on the woman's shoulders, I've seen it happen where it is just put on the woman's shoulders and she feels more burdened and she feels more just heavy with this responsibility. And sometimes at that point, it is just easier to say, you know what, let's just do something else because this is just too hard. But when the man is willing to step up and be that supportive partner, to be that person that is having the conversations, that's even taking over the charting, that is when I really see couples flourish when they use natural family planning, fertility awareness. That is I find that the couples that do that are the most successful at it. And I find that the women have just this sense of relief that all of that information, all the things that they're seeing, it's not just on their shoulders. And I have a really funny story, actually. One of my couples that I have been seeing for some time now, they were at a wedding. And at that wedding, they knew that couple pretty well that was getting married. And they were having a conversation with this couple just about like family planning and what their plans are, right? And the couple had stated that they were going to use some sort of hormonal contraception. And the couple that I work with, they told me that they actually started to talk to this couple about, oh, that's interesting. Well, we're not going to do that in our marriage. This couple is engaged. We're not going to do that in our marriage. We're actually going to use natural family planning in our marriage. And so that sparked a little bit of a conversation. They started having a conversation about how fertility really is a lot on the woman, and there's so much going on with the woman during her cycle. And the man who is getting married said, "Oh yeah, I don't know anything about that stuff. Like that's her. That I don't really need to know any of that." But the man that I'm working with, who's engaged to this other woman, he goes, "I know everything." He's like, "I know all of it. I know exactly what's happening with her. I know exactly the beauty of her design. I've seen the diagrams. I know what's going on." And when they came and told me this story, there was such a deep amount of pride in them of just having this knowledge about their fertility and what they are embarking on in their marriage once they get married. And it was just so beautiful. It was one of those stories that I was like, this makes me so excited. Like, this is the fruit of what I'm doing, right? Like, I am teaching couples to take ownership of their fertility and track it and to understand the beauty of it and be like, and for a man to have so much pride to be like, yep, I know what's going on. I know everything about it. And to have that woman to have her future husband say, I know what's going on with you. I know you. I know so much more intimately about you because of charting your cycle. He takes over the charting in their engagement. And I just think yeah, it was just such a beautiful testament to what charting as a couple can do, the amount of support, the amount of confidence that comes with that. So if you are sitting here as a woman and maybe you're engaged, maybe you're married, maybe you are discerning with your boyfriend marriage, right? And you're thinking, I don't know if my husband would ever be on board with this. I feel very alone in it. I feel like it's a burden on me. I want you to have hope, because there is a reality that we cannot control anyone around us, let alone our husbands. We cannot control them. We can communicate with them what's important to us, and we can tell them what we need and what we want, but we cannot force them, right? That's not even love. Love is not forceful. Love is invitation. And so if you are sitting here thinking, that sounds great, but I don't think that's going to be me, or that's not currently me, I challenge you to be more open with your spouse about what you are doing and why, by charting your cycle. What are you doing and why you are doing it, why it's so important to you. And that may not that may not change anything right then and there, and that's okay. But I think sometimes as women, we expect people to read our minds. I know I do. I don't know if you do, but I do. And we expect people to read our minds and to think that something is important when we think it's important, but we haven't told them why it's important to us, if that makes sense. So communicate the importance of what you are doing. And maybe if it is a struggle for you right now, communicate that too and say, this is something that's really important to me, but it's been a struggle and I need support. And then end it right there. Have hope that you will get that support. But also, I just challenge you, if that's not working, continue on, even if it feels like a burden, even if it feels like a burden, and pray. Pray for your husband, pray for your fiance, pray for them to understand why you're doing it, for them to feel that sense of importance and to cooperate in it with you. Pray for that, because I 100% guarantee you, and I know this from personal experience, that God can change hearts way better than I can, and way better than you can too. So communicate how it's important to you, and then just pray. And just take a step back and just pray. You may find that things never change, or you may find that things do change, but maybe just not in the timeline that you want them to change sometimes, or maybe it'll just click and that would be amazing. But I don't want you to sit here as a woman and just think, oh, that sounds wonderful to do it with a husband, but that's just not me. And he'll never get there, or he'll never come around. And maybe that's true, but maybe it's not true. There's always hope. That is what I'm trying to say, is that there's always hope there. In my own personal experience, there have been times as well when kind of the opposite happened. So normally my husband and I do our charting together. We do communicate about our fertility together. And my husband has been incredibly supportive, and I'm super grateful for that. We've also had a dynamic where I wanted control. I am type A control freak, and I wanted control over our fertility. This was specifically when we were newly married and we were wanting to get pregnant right away, and we weren't getting pregnant right away. And it was pretty difficult being in that moment. It ended up taking about 7 months, which in the grand scheme of things is nothing. But when you're in the middle of it, it was something, right? Because you just don't know how long it's going to take. And I remember just wanting that control, that eventually the chart went from his bedside table to mine. And I stopped communicating with him, not really intentionally, but just out of this desire for control over my fertility and knowing when my temperature is going to rise and what I am seeing that day. And I can't explain it other than just this desire for control over it. And so the charting ended up becoming mine, and I no longer really was communicating with my husband about it. And it came to the point where I was so stressed and so burdened, not because my husband was unwilling to support me, but because I wanted to do it alone. I wanted to have this sense of control over my body and control over my fertility, and knowing what's going on and seeing the charting patterns and blah, 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 right? And that was really, I don't want to say destructive, but that wasn't good for our marriage, especially when it's two people trying to get pregnant. It wasn't good for our marriage because I was treating it as my fertility. When we got married, we promised and we vowed to give our whole selves to each other, holding nothing back, which meant my fertility and his fertility became our fertility. And I was treating it as my fertility. And that became a struggle, right? And it actually wasn't until I realized what was happening and I realized my desire for control over this. And I realized I had to let go of that control because it wasn't going to happen on my timeline, and that's okay. And so when I finally did let go of that control with my husband's encouragement to hand things back over, it wasn't until then that we actually did get pregnant. And it was kind of crazy, the timing of it all. I think also the stress of wanting that control was affecting things fertility wise. That's a story for another day. But I say this in that sometimes the coin is flipped, where it's not the husband that's not wanting to support, but it's the wife that's like, I want control over this. And that is also a wrong way to do natural family planning, to chart your cycle. That is the wrong way to go about it because it's not meant to give you control over your body, but it's to give you an understanding of the way that it's made. And if there's something wrong, we can see that being revealed on the chart. And that's when you work with the doctor to change that and heal that, right? But it's never to give you a sense of control over your body because you don't have that. We don't have that. We don't have that control. So natural family planning, fertility awareness, charting your cycle with and as a couple, that is kind of the middle ground virtue. To one side being the husband is not supportive, he doesn't want to do this, he's not even interested in learning about it, versus the wife just wanting to do it on her own, wanting to have that control over it and not wanting to share it, right? There's a middle ground where you can find true marital health in charting your cycle. And it can actually bring about better marital health in increasing your communication with each other. It's not just on the woman, but it's something that the couple is doing together. Now, one last thing, one just last piece of advice. I know a lot of women love using fertility apps. And I have a whole video on fertility apps, so I'll link that down below. I have a love-hate relationship with fertility apps. I myself actually just still chart on paper. It's fine using fertility apps if you know how to use them and which one you're using. But if you're using a fertility app as a woman and you are married or you are engaged and your charting really does need to be done in that couple setting, I do challenge you either to stop using the app and just go to a piece of paper, because that can make it just so much more easily accessible to both the man and the woman to view the chart, to write on the chart, and so on. Or if you want to keep using an app, I recommend using an app that you can have multiple phones access the same chart. So I recommend finding an app where the husband and the wife can access the chart via their own phones, so that it's not just on the woman's phone. It's not just something that you're inputting, but it's something that, again, a way that you can share your fertility with each other, right? Is having it accessible from both phones if you do choose to do an app. So for me, I just go old school paper because that's been our jam, and that's just the easiest way that we find to do it. But again, like I said, if you want to use an app, try to use one that has that sharing capability so that you can still use it together and it's accessible from both phones. So I hope this video just gave you some encouragement in knowing that if you are a woman, this doesn't have to be done on your own. Invite your husband into this with you. And so that it's not just a burden on your shoulders, but it's something that you share together. Because when you said your vows, you said that you were giving your whole self to the other person and them to you. And that can be so clearly shown in treating your fertility as your own fertility, not separate fertilities. Also, too, if you're a man watching this and you're feeling that nudge in your heart to start supporting your wife or to start learning more about this, or maybe you guys aren't charting at all, but you've been thinking as a couple about maybe this is something we want to do for our family planning, invite your wife into that and support her in that. And that is the manliest thing, most masculine thing you can do, is to support her in that charting, because it is not just her fertility, it is your fertility as a couple, as a married couple, especially when you give each other your vows. That is what you're saying, that it's becoming your fertility. So I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and subscribe. That helps me so much just to be able to continue to give these videos to you. And let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. I also have a separate email that's a link in my bio, that if you have any more, maybe more personal questions about charting, fertility as a couple, etc., you're always welcome to contact me there too. And I will see you guys again next week.